Welcome to the Insightful Player podcast. My name is Chrissy Carew. I'm the host and founder of Insightful Player and the author of Insightful Player, Football Pros Lead a Bold Movement of Hope. I partner with NFL players to transform our world to be inclusive, kinder, and more loving. In each episode, I interviewed NFL players and NFL vets who overcame tremendous obstacles to reach their dream of playing in the NFL. And I'm also a transformational coach. I empower my clients to embrace their dreams, to transform their world and the world around them. And we want you to believe in your dreams and encourage you to commit to them now. Humanity is in trouble. We need you. We all need to do this. We need to embrace our dreams and share them with others so we can have an immediate positive impact on making our world a much kinder place. We invite you to become an important part of our bold movement of hope. Watch this podcast, share it with others, and let us know what you want to see and hear to support you in becoming an insightful player in your life. Thank you. Well, welcome back to the Insightful Player podcast. Today we have on a very special guest, Ben Utecht. I think I met you in 2009.
It's been a long time, hasn't it?
It has. It's great to be reconnected too. Now, Ben is a retired Super Bowl champion. He's an author. He's the recipient of the Dungy Uncommon Award, which I'm going to ask you to explain that to everyone. Sure. And he's a keynote speaker, and he's the chief culture officer. And again, he's going to get more into that. Ben is all about giving people a renewed sense of he's all about pouring love into the world. And you've always been that way since I met you. He has a fascinating combination of honest to goodness grit, genuine grace, and courageous vulnerability, which is so nice because you really have a tremendous gift of connecting with people because you're so willing to be who you are. You're so authentic. And all of this gives Ben an amazing ability to help create more harmony in our world, which our world craves. So welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Chrissy. Happy to be with you. This is great.
Yeah, it's great to be reconnected. So can you tell us just a little bit about the Dungy Uncommon Award? I think a lot of people aren't familiar.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And it's right here actually behind. This is about 90 pounds. You wouldn't even believe it. It's pure, it's like pure metal. It's pretty incredible. And it says demonstrating uncommon leadership. And so Tony Dungy, Hall of Fame World Championship coach for the NFL, created this award, and it's really designed to spotlight the importance of what uncommon leadership looks like. And it's gone to players like one of my former teammates, Peyton Manning, was one of the recipients of the Uncommon Award. And so it was a huge honor. It has three of the most important individuals in Tony Dungy's life. And that would be Cal Stahl, who was his coach for the University of Minnesota when he was playing for the Gophers. It's his father, and it's Martin Luther King Jr. And so it's just it's one of the most special things that I've ever been given, awarded, completely humbled, completely floored by the opportunity to receive this. And so it was a true honor, but it's everything about what Dungy stands for, which is what does uncommon leadership look like? What does it mean to build uncommon culture, to treat people in a positive and uncommon way? And so most everything that I'm passionate about doing now is because of that.
That's great. Yeah, he's a wonderful role model for all of us. And yeah, and it speaks volumes about your character. And you've never been boastful. So I just love the fact that you are the recipient of such a wonderful award, such a good guy. And you've also been a tremendous advocate for the suffering of brain injury, concussions, because you unfortunately had many of them, countless, and thank God you're okay. But you've spoken to Congress, you've really done a lot to create awareness. Can you tell us, and you wrote a book to talk about it, again, being typical Ben, vulnerable, putting it all out there, right? Which is
Yeah.
such a great quality. Can you
Well, you
share a little
never,
bit?
yeah, you never want your career to end due to injury. You know, it's the most, physical violent sport in the world, and it's bound to happen. Unfortunately for me, it came in the form of concussion. Um, I really retired because I was having some cognitive issues and some memory issues. We just started our family, and so I wanted to be careful, and I wanted to do whatever I could to, have sustainable brain health. And so I walked away from the game that I really loved to play, that I started playing when I was in third and fourth grade. And so that was a difficult season, but I became a voice into my goal. Chrissy, was always to just emotionally connect people to the importance of their mind and memories. It was never anti-football. Um, it was a balance between having a pro game and a pro brain mindset, right? It's football gives so many that don't typically get opportunities, an opportunity to do something they love and to succeed. The life lessons that exist within football are deep and immense. And at the same time, it's our physical bodies that we put on the line every day, especially our brains, which is the makeup of who we are as a person. And so I really wanted to find that balance right in between, two very important realities. And that's really where my advocacy was, and was so blessed to come back to Minnesota, where we had the American Academy of Neurology, the American Brain Foundation, and to be a spokesperson for them was truly an honor. And just glad that I could use my story to help people not only continue to love football, but also to realize how important the brain is to who we are as human beings. It's what makes us relevant, and that's a great story to share.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've learned a lot from you just from the other day. That you've really been helped. I'm so glad that you look great, you're doing great, and doing some amazing things in the world to boot. You've answered a beautiful calling. You're helping companies and individuals build champion culture. Boy, I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, man, culture is it's one of the, you know, it's one of the buzzwords trending today, in every aspect of life, whether it's business or home life or educational life. Everybody's talking about culture. And, it's within that I found something that I'm very passionate about, because I believe that culture truly is representative of people. You know that famous Peter Drucker quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I often ask audiences when I speak, I often ask them why. Why is that true? Because strategy is an outcome that's created by people. And culture ultimately is the creation of strategy. And so the reason culture eats strategy for breakfast is because it's representative of the people of that community, of that culture. And so one of the greatest lessons I learned from my Hall of Fame Super Bowl winning coach, Chrissy and Tony Dungy, was that if you build better men, you get better football players. And let that sink in, because it's so much deeper than it sounds. If you build better men, you get better football players. And so every single football player that makes it to the NFL is in the top 1%. That's how small, that's how hard it is to get to that level. And so when you're in that level, to be able to understand that qualities like integrity and character and humility and vulnerability and empathy and grace and so on and so on and so, these skills, when you actually spend time practicing them and building systems to develop them in people, not only are you going to get the top 1% who are so gifted at the skills and competencies of the game, but now you're actually building and developing their leadership capabilities, building and developing their relational capabilities, their emotional strengths, everything begins to grow, then the human condition begins to grow. And so, of course, your performance on the field is going to grow. And so that changed my whole perspective on culture. Culture just doesn't have to be this word that we just throw around to everything. We just attach it to everyone. Well, it's culture. And no, it doesn't have to be so subjective. It can be an objective tool that we use to actually develop and build the best forms of ourselves as people that we can. And when we build the best form of ourselves, apply that to our gifts and talents for the workplace, now you've just created the peak human condition that you can. That is what really gets me excited, because it's pouring into people, it's providing value and purpose, it's being intentional with everything that we do in order to improve their lives, and that makes them come to work every day wanting to be there, wanting to give of themselves, because they feel valued for, they feel cared for, and that's important. That's radically important.
Oh God, yes. I mean, and I appreciate everything you're saying. I grew up with my dad as a high school coach and English teacher. He used sports as a way to build character and help kids learn valuable life skills, and that was his whole purpose. So, you two would love each other if you ever but he's in heaven. In that whole culture thing, I'm so glad that you're out there doing this. Our culture is broken, and people are hurting. And not just organizations, but individuals can help build their culture as well, in their families, in their communities. And do you have anything you can say to that?
I think that's one thing that, in an American culture where business really is the foundation that exists in order to provide sustenance, there's such an importance on vocational identity. And because of that, we can often forget that when you really strip it down, the identity a person feels towards their emotional and their physical, their spiritual, this is the core of who people are. And they have to go to work because they have to provide for their families. But their work life is not truly their identity. It's not truly who they are. It's something that they have to do. And so it's really important for organizations to understand that and to do whatever they can to pour into the emotional, spiritual, physical parts of a person's identity. What makes the human condition of this person perform at its highest capabilities comes out of really what makes them happy, really what makes them feel like they have a purpose here. And that ultimately, as a chief culture officer, my role is to really create an ecosystem that provides that for people, right? It's about developing people and pouring into people so that when they walk through those doors every day, they feel like, this organization, this company truly sees me and they value me and they understand what makes me feel special. And they're going to develop that in me in order for me to go have a successful career. And there's a monetary value to that, Chrissy. That's the thing, right? Because when you get into big business, it's the same with football. We talked about this. It's like, at the end of the day, what is impacting the bottom line? And part of my passion is to prove to big business, to prove to organizations that people ultimately are what impact the bottom line. And if you want your revenue to increase, then you need to develop your people. You need to pour into your people. And ultimately, that's sustainable. Okay. Fear is not sustainable. Fear increases turnover, it decreases retention, and it ruins organizational culture. Love, value, respect, honor, virtue, gratitude, joy. I mean, the list, these are the things that we want to foster in business. They actually have a significant effect on the bottom line. It's just getting people to actually think that way about it.
Well, we need to get you on that world stage more often, every day. In fact, would you please go back to Congress and speak to them? They really need you. I'm not sure they're coachable. Boy, wouldn't it be great for them? everything you're saying is just so true. And people have this unmet need to belong.
Yeah.
And when you honor people with that level of respect and love, as you said, pouring love into them, they can be more fulfilled, and it trickles into their whole life,
Yep.
which is what we so desperately need,
Yep.
as you know.
I agree.
So how do we all get everyone involved with, to really step up to help, to transform our culture, to be more inclusive, kinder, and more loving? What are your thoughts about that, Ben?
Oh, there's a lot to dissect there. I mean, number one with the mentors that I've worked with in the PhD community, one of the things we've all agreed on is that culture is the leader's choice. You have to have leaders in position in order to live out these types of ideologies and these philosophies, because the waterfall effect on that is organizational, and that is really critical. It's hard when you're asking someone more on the foundational side of the community to be the leader of that. And that was one thing that was so evident, Chrissy, when I stepped into a Super Bowl championship team, is Tony Dungy came in, right? Tony Dungy came in, and he had players like Peyton Manning and Dwight Freeney and Marvin Harrison, and I mean the list goes on and on. Some of the top players in the NFL that had bought in and committed to this way of thinking. And so as a rookie, when I came into that locker room, do you think that I'm going to, confront or do things differently than my Hall of Fame quarterback, Peyton Manning? No, it's not going to happen. I'm being impacted by the leadership of Peyton Manning and by Tony Dungy. And I choose to step into that and commit to that. And it had a great impact on my life. So it starts with leadership, I guess, is my answer, Chrissy, is you got to have great leaders in place that believe in the value of pouring into the human condition at work.
Right. And Tony, I read his book, and his more than one now. It's all about, as you mentioned, the servant. It's all about caring for people and showing them the respect and putting them ahead of the goals, right?
It is, but within that, it's like like one of the principles we talk about that I really took out of Indianapolis and Tony Dungy was this idea that grace has an effect on peak performance, right? So grace is to act with kindness or clemency, right? But as we define grace, it's not absent of excellence.
Correct.
And that's one of the things that I feel like, especially in our younger culture, we lose sight of, that as leaders, we can still create a culture that operates out of a foundation of grace. We want to treat people well, treat them with kindness, treat them with clemency, while we demand excellence. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're just going to come into a culture that practices grace, let's say, and you can just do whatever you want. No, you still have to do your job. And in any part of life, even as a father of 4 incredible and beautiful daughters, we train our children. We have to work and coach and teach them about life, and there are consequences, right? There are consequences when they don't study for a test in school. What usually happens? They don't get the grade that they want, and then they have to do the work afterwards in order to increase that grade. Okay, that's a part of life. And so while we talk about the importance of skills like grace, we also have to understand that there still exists an intensity around the importance of doing things in an excellent way at a high level and being held accountable when you don't.
Right. And people are happier when they're accountable. And that love and grace, I think, breeds excellence. And it enables people to expand their perspective of what's possible. Mm-hmm. And they get, hit with the bug, just to create more, like Pac-Man. You too young to remember Pac-Man?
No, I grew up with Atari, so I know all about Pac-Man.
Oh, okay. But it just empowers people to do more, to reach further, right? And to be better role models to, the people in their community. So yes, the excellence, I concur, is a very important part of all of this. Um, it's amazing. So it just seems like you're out there transforming people. It's this transformational movement that you're knee deep in leading.
Well, and that's because I've been blessed to be mentored by a couple of different chief people officers in the Fortune 100 community. So these are individuals that have overseen, the hiring and management of tens of thousands of people, 65, 75, 85,000 people in these large organizations. And that's always been something that I've learned from them, is just how incredibly important it is, um, to be transformational, because there's really only two lanes, Chrissy. You have a conformative lane, or you have a transformative lane. And you have to make a choice in your leadership style of how do you want to approach or create a game plan or attempt to develop the individual, right? If you're not getting the types of behaviors and performance that out of your players, for example, in the NFL, you can do an old school approach, and you can come at them, and you can try and use language that tears them down to build them back up. Conform, do what I say, or you're not going to be on the team. Or you use story in a transformational way. You use words in a transformative way to help begin to change a mindset. If you don't change a mindset of a person, you're never truly going to get their full commitment, right? To truly get devotion out of people, you have to be transformational in the way that you approach the development of their human condition. Otherwise, what's the point in doing it? You're just telling people what to do, how to do it my way, or get out. And why would they want to come to work for that type of environment? Because they need the money. And so that's a part of it, is really helping people understand that, fear still gets results, but it doesn't get sustainable results. And that is, to me, what's a huge differentiator.
Yeah, the sustainability is amazing. And I concur, and another lane that I think goes in the middle is being transactional versus transformational.
Sure.
And it's really quite something else. And I agree with you. I mean, if you're not going to go on that path of transformation, what kind of life are you going to, right? How happy are you going to be? What kind of legacy are you going to leave behind you? Because in giving, we receive, and it can be the most fulfilled by leading that transformational life.
And you make a good point, Chrissy, because everything we do in life is transactional.
Right.
So when you think about the times in your life where you've experienced the best side of humanity, it's probably because the transaction was positive, and you had to deal with people. Have you ever been in a situation where it's like I recently was going through my credit card statement, and there was a mistake, and something was made payable to my credit card. So I called this company that I'd never heard of before, and the guy that answered was absolutely wonderful and incredible. And he was apologetic, and he went out of his way to connect me to the right people and to go through. So I started out that process in frustration and disappointment and uncertainty. And yet here's a person that gets on and says, wow, this was, and took me through a process that was honoring to me. And that transaction, because of his behavior and because of how he chose to develop the situation, gave me a totally different, reaction and experience to that issue. It would have been totally different if I would have got somebody on that was that was not interested, and they're close-minded, and they were sharp and critical. Then all of a sudden I'm responding negatively to that transaction. So I think you're absolutely. I think that's a great balance between conformative and transformative, it's always transactional. So how are you going to lead during that transaction?
Right. Really good point. And I have a great story too. Um, I was on the Nordstrom's website and I was going to buy a gift and it wasn't working. So I called the 800 number to get help. And what happened is my dog had just died suddenly and she was only 7 the day before. And so I was weeping and I just apologized to the customer service person. I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. My dog just died suddenly." And the woman was so loving. And the next day, I got this huge bouquet of flowers.
What?
No, it's true.
No.
So, honest to God, so I was like stunned. So I called the owner of Nordstrom to say, I mean, I was speechless. I said, I can't believe it. And he says, "Oh, that's just the Nordstrom." So
Okay.
I shop there every chance I get.
That is culture, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
The Nordstrom's way. I mean, that's what the culture was in Indianapolis with the Colts. It was the Colts way. And as I
Right.
left and began talking about this publicly, it was the champions way, right? It's paving a way by which we choose to do things intentionally to improve the human condition transactionally and transformationally whenever we can. That is what, if we only did that, just imagine if we did that in this world, on a daily basis.
Oh,
It would create such a harmony, which would be truly power, even a harmony that can exist between people with opposing views.
yes, definitely. We're desperate for that.
Oh yeah, big time,
It's
big time.
just unbelievable. And that's why I brought Insightful Player back because of that. All the fighting. And
Yep.
I just couldn't take it. So I'm so happy to hear your story and help you get your message out because you're a healer. You are a healer. And I know that you inspire and touch a lot of people in big business and individuals deeply. And you leave a permanent impression on people's hearts, as you have mine.
Appreciate
So
that.
I appreciate you, Ben. And anything else you want to share, like why you think it's so important for us to all step in? Why should we all step in to
Yeah,
help this culture of ours?
it's a good question because, part of we talked about this recently, part of the difficulty of retiring and stepping into the real world is really discovering what your calling is. I grew up playing football in third, fourth grade, and when I entered the real world at 30, while I had passions, Chrissy, I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to be doing next. What's my real calling? And so, it's I always knew I wanted to speak. My dad was a pastor. I saw a man who devoted his life to using the power of words to be positive and transformational in people's lives. I knew I wanted to do that. So I started speaking, but then I became kind of an athlete speaker, which you get put into a pool of different of different categories. And I was a inspirational, motivational athlete speaker, even though I had this special mission that I got from my Hall of Fame coach Tony Dungy, this new approach to transformational culture. And so within the last 2 years, um, I found a company now that I'm an owner and partner in, called Behavioral Essentials, and it's just a powerful software platform, assessment-based platform that helps organizations hire better, develop leaders better, and culture better. And for the first time in like a decade, I went from being just inspirational and motivational into actually using qualitative and quantitative data to help companies achieve this. Like we can actually benchmark aspirational culture and hire into that benchmark so that when you bring people in, when you give them an inclusive opportunity to come into an organization, you have created a very objective and chosen culture that they can choose to or not to be a part of based upon whether it fits, their identity. And that's really powerful to give people that choice. And so I'm really excited about the next 10 years because to answer your question, like I think how we do it is through inspiration and we do it through, objective science and data that can help create just a powerful balance on hiring the best people, developing them to the best of your ability, and creating transformational culture that can be held accountable.
Awesome. And it's great that you provide a place to be inclusive where people can choose. Yes, this fits my values, or no, it doesn't. So when you get the right people in the culture that are compatible, and that's pretty miraculous.
Yeah.
In this day and age, right? Um, so good for you. Thank you for taking this on.
Yeah.
Amazing. I look forward to learning more about your company. Sounds
Yeah. Well, it's an exciting time, and it's obviously with the importance of diversity, equity, inclusivity, with the importance now more than ever of finding top talent and people that can come in and help build, the organization. Now more than ever, culture is critical, and making it an actual product, a material, objective part of a strategic plan or a game plan is so important. So it's really the right time.
excellent. Thank you. Thank you for jumping in and taking the lead there. And you have something funny. I said, what's fun fact about you? And you said you want to be Superman, or you wish you were Superman.
Well, who wouldn't want to be Superman?
Can you say more about that?
Let me write down some notes here on my Superman pen.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Oh, that's funny. I grew up in just I fell in love with that movie and the old John Williams soundtrack, and so I had an injury when I think it was probably, Chrissy, my first concussion. I was just a little kid. I was 5 years old, running
Oh,
running around the living room with my friend, and he came flying out of the kitchen. I dove out of the way like Superman, and I ran right into the corner of a dresser. And you
ooh,
can't see it, but I do have a good scar here. Ever since then, my family showered me with Superman memorabilia at all of the holidays, including including birthdays. So it just became kind of this funny thing, But interesting as it's connected to culture is one of the things that I just fell in love with the comics and how the character was created by the Schuster brothers back in the 30s was the importance of virtue, and justice and morality and ethics and you know what does it mean to be a good person?
right.
What does it mean to have virtue today and to do your best to do the right thing and to do your best to do the moral thing, to do the ethical thing, and none of us are perfect. All of us are going to fail at times in those areas, but shouldn't we strive for it because it's the best representation of the best part of ourselves? And when we're living that out, aren't we the happiest? Don't we
Yes.
feel the most content? And so I know I do, and I guess I can only speak from my own personal position on that, but that's when I feel the best about myself is when I'm truly living a life that is reflective of those qualities. And that's something I love about that character.
It's great. And it's great advice to ask yourself these thought-provoking questions,
Yeah,
because your mind will give you the answers and help you. And especially if you ask a question you don't know an answer to, which is great,
sure.
So good for you.
Thanks.
So Ben is in my book, Insightful Player, right? And
Yes,
at
I've got
the
a
end,
copy of that.
yes, you do. At the end of each chapter of 32 players in the book, I have their guiding principles. I'd like to share a couple of things. Trust your instincts in your heart and stick to what you believe in.
Hmm.
And adjust your attitude about tough times. They teach us important lessons. Look beyond them. And that's something I remember so clearly about you when I first met you, about how when you had some kind of obstacle, some kind of terrible setback, you didn't freak out. Of course you felt it, whatever the emotion was, but you also had this belief that something grand would come out. How the heck did you get at such a young age?
Oh, Chrissy, I was blessed to I grew up in a family that just poured into my sister and I, in our identity and our value. And, everything that we were taught growing up revolved around perseverance, endurance, fortitude, and the blessings that come out of having a mentality like that, right? Blessed is the man and woman who endures trials of many kinds, for when they have withstood the test, right? It's getting through that testing, right? That you actually can experience just incredible value. And that was something I got from my parents. So, I really owe all that to them. And I guess just surrendering to the fact that, we're all going to go through the valleys.
Right.
We really are. I mean, it can be a sudden loss of a dear, animal that has given you so much joy in your life, and, or a family member or a friend. And we can go through these times and we know they're going to come. So what are we going to do about it? I try to be as actionable as possible, because I know that suffering is coming. I know that trials are coming. I know that difficulty is coming, but I also know that when it comes, it goes into the past. And so there's nothing we can do about it except for learn from it and make choices to positively impact our lives going forward. And I feel like if we can, as hard as it is, if we can hang on to that reality, that truth, then we can come out of it stronger. We can come out of it with more hope. We can come out of it with more optimism, right? And it's all of these things that I do believe are just really important to moving forward into your calling. And that was something that I was given as a young, as a young child and growing up in my adolescence. And so I try to give it to my girls too. It's not easy, especially when you're going through it, right? It's easy to forget and to let go of that.
Right.
But it's important to try to hang on to it.
Absolutely. And what I've noticed is by facing it, your gifts and strengths come back much stronger. Have you experienced that, Ben?
Oh yeah, I have. And listen, as a culture officer, one of the things that we have to do is we have to create actionables, right? We can talk about these things inspirationally, but if we don't actually give people a general way to practice it, it's really difficult. Okay, so how do you practice coming out of those situations? And spend a little time, spend time with people when they're going through difficulties, and helping them create, okay, here's 3 things you can do over the next few months. Here's one thing you can do over the next couple of weeks to help pull yourself out of this difficult time, to move forward into your calling and your passion. Give people, I call them practical and tactical ways to apply and grow. And so if you can do those things with the people you work with and that you spend your life with, a lot of times they'll follow through on those actions, and they'll experience the fruit of that.
Right. And that's community. It's a beautiful community when we can all give to each other like that.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of that out there. We just don't hear about it. We hear about all the other crazy stuff, right?
That's true. That is true.
So one thing I just want to touch on before we go, Ben is a very gifted musician. He has the most beautiful voice. I mean, amazing. And you have some albums. Share a little bit about that before we go.
It is, well, first of all, it's not fake. That's not fake news by Chrissy Carew. It's real. I actually am a singer. I was raised in a very musical family. Was trained ever since I was a young kid. Signed a record deal when I was playing for the Colts in Indianapolis, and moved to Nashville after retiring to really give music and speaking a chance. And so I've done music my whole life. Still have just a wonderful Christmas show that I do every year in Minnesota called an Andy and Bing Christmas, right? If you love Andy Williams and Bing Crosby, two of the highest selling Christmas albums of all time, you would love the show. But it's music for me, number one, it's always fun to kind of deconstruct stereotypes. No one expects a singing football player, especially 6'7", 260-pound tight end. And so it's always fun to surprise people. But music was really just a great way to express myself, and it really helped me through a lot of those valleys we talked about, Chrissy, and just being able to write and to sing, and whether it was about concussion and fear of the future with memory, or whether it's on the happier side about the joy of of life and the people that we love that come into that life. Music has just been a language that's been able to really help me express myself, and it's been a joy. So I'm blessed on many levels, and music is a part of that.
Well, your music touches the soul, that's for sure. So,
Yep.
well, Ben, thank you so much. We'll have to have you back. I mean, you have so much more to talk about, and you're doing some really beautiful work out there.
Thank you.
How can people reach you?
Listen, one of my things about being a servant leader is to be accessible. And so no matter what you see behind me, I want to connect with you. I'm not hard to get a hold of. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of my time there because I'm really pouring into the business community. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn and send me a note. Let's connect. Otherwise, I'm on Instagram at Ben Utecht, and Twitter at Ben Utecht. Same with Facebook. And trying to put out good content. It's going to increase quite a bit in the next 6 to 12 months now that we're kind of building out a production team. So I'm really excited to start taking these incredible lessons that you've asked me about today, and really beginning to start to distribute them out into the industry. And so really excited about that.
Excellent. Well, we're all excited for you. And thanks you so much, Superman. And we'll have you back for sure.
Can't wait.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for watching or listening, depending on your platform. And until next time, you go out there and give your heart away. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The entire Insightful Player podcast initiative is dedicated to the late Tom Constantino. Tom Constantino was my PR consultant. He was over the moon fabulous. He was really an exceptional human being, and Insightful Player wouldn't have made it to where it is now if it wasn't for Tom. So Tom, up there in heaven, I just want you to know you're going to live in my heart forever, and I am forever grateful for you. Thank you.